All right, we are live. Hello and welcome everyone. This is Rashmi from Design Hill and your host for the day. First of all, wishing you all a very happy new year. I hope you had a great time with your friends and families. And considering the COVID situation, I hope you guys are taking necessary precautions as well. So, welcome to the session. And today we are going to talk about podcasting strategies for businesses. I would love to know where you guys are joining us from. So let us know that as well in the chat section. Today's event is brought to you by Design Hill, which is the world's leading creative marketplace that caters to the creative needs of businesses and individuals alike, who can source high quality designs and buy unique products from professional artists from around the world from its print on demand marketplace, which is called Print Shop by Design Hill. Let me introduce our speakers for the day. To start with, we have Yagneshwar Ganesh with us. He is one of the top 100 global marketing tech influencers, a TEDx speaker, and a best selling author of 7 books. With 10 plus years of experience in B2B marketing for MarTech organizations and startups, he enjoys helping startups achieve product market fit. Given his passion for marketing tech and startup, he is quite active in APAC and European startup ecosystem. It gives him a lot of happiness and a sense of purpose in mentoring the early stage startup at the Google for Entrepreneurs initiative, which is called the Startup Weekend. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate that. Go ahead and say hi to the audience.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Rashmi, and all of you here. Pretty excited to be here and looking forward to your questions. And let's see how it goes. I hope I make your time worthwhile.
I'm sure you will. All right. So next we have Vanessa Correa with us. Vanessa is an entrepreneur, business and life coach, but most of all a lover of life and loves to inspire others to follow their dreams. As co-founder of Women Flix, her mission is to help women around the globe to gain the confidence, knowledge and skills that they can succeed. Vanessa.
Thank you, Rashmi. Really excited to be here as well. Really looking forward to all of your questions and just so grateful to be here with all of you and the rest of the speakers as well. So thank you everyone for joining us and we hope you enjoy.
Wonderful. Next we have is Tizer Evans with us. Tizer is a corporate sales professional who has worked for 3 Fortune 500 companies and has been recognized as a top salesperson and manager. He is passionate about pushing himself to achieve high-end results through constant learning, discipline and helping others. Sales has been a channel that has allowed him to test his mental fortitude, build long-lasting relationships and learn lifelong lessons about being a leader. Tizer.
Yep, excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Last but not the least, we have Henrik de Gior. I hope, Henrik, I'm pronouncing your name right. Henrik is a remote consultant, podcaster, and writer. He assists, advises, and advocates for digital asset management. He helps clients whether they are selecting their first DAM system, migrating to a new DAM, needing improvements to their current DAM, or consolidating many DAM system. Henrik.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. Look forward to your questions. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, everyone, for taking out the time from your schedule and joining us today. It's an honor to have you guys here. So before we start the session, here are big announcements for the audience that's listening to us here today. We will be giving certificates to the attendees who will stick with us till the end, so make sure you do that. Also, you have an opportunity to win a $50 Print Shop gift card from us by doing a simple thing. You just need to take a screenshot of the session and make sure you tag all our panelists on Twitter and tag Designer DH, and you will have a chance to win a $50 Print Shop gift card. It's a fun thing to do and also a way to sort of spread the word about the event which is going on. So make sure you do that. All the social handles of our speakers will be in the chat section. My team member Harshita is there who is moderating the session and she will be sharing all the information in the chat. So make sure you look at the chat section. Also, one lucky winner will have a chance to win a Print Shop gift card, and also we will be rolling out few offers in between, which is exclusively for this session only. So make sure you keep your eye in the chat section. All right, so these were a quick announcement for everyone. Now, before I begin the session, let's quickly look at what Design Hill is all about.
Looking to bring your branding out of the 80s? Head to the world's #1 creative marketplace, Design Hill. When I wanted to grow my parents' restaurant business, I knew we needed a better logo than the one my Uncle Sonny drew back in the 1980s. That's why I went to Design Hill and got an incredible logo and brand identity that met all my needs within my small budget. The process was easy. I just went to Design Hill's marketplace to choose from one of their incredible professional designers. Find one you like based on their style. Oh, this one looks interesting. Check the ratings and reviews to see how other people like their work. Oh, seems like he's worked at restaurants before. Then add some information about your business. Do you have a slogan? Where's the logo gonna appear? What colors do you need? Then your designer will get to work delivering you an incredible logo. You can even find an expert to design any kind of graphic design, from packaging to menus to t-shirts to business cards. I got everything. And now with the help of Design Hill, I have everything I need to take my business to the next level and leave the 80s where they belong. It's real. Mom and Dad are so proud. Maybe we can open up a second location, or a third, or a fourth, or let's just go global.
Let the world know it's real and build your brand with Design Hill.
All right, that was about Design Hill, and now we are all set to start the session. So let me start with Henrik first, and I'll take this question to the other panelists as well. So Henrik, I was reading this article on Wired some time back titled "The Future of Social Media is All Talks." It reiterated the fact how 2020 was all about social isolation, even though we decked up every day and showed up on our screen for meetings and conferences. Screen fatigue soon took us over, and right there we were never wanting to face the camera again but just listen. Maybe that is the reason why businesses today wants to win not our heart but ears. Clubhouse, Discord, Twitter are so many platforms are venturing into audio-based social apps. How do you see this shift? Where do you think this is going?
Thanks so much for the question. I believe that the future is audio because our ears are more available than our eyes, if you think about it. So when we're commuting, when we're walking outside or cooking or whatever we happen to be doing, we can be listening to something of value, whether it's for entertainment, for information, for whatever the purpose is, whether it's a call with loved ones or friends or coworkers or people that you want to do something with. The ears are available far more often, and I think the future is audio. Just like we have the Alexas, we have the Google Homes out there available as well to simplify certain things, where you just ask with your voice rather than just looking or glancing at something and hoping and praying that it's going to be accurate and you can see it. So you don't have to pull out your phone to necessarily see that information. You can just ask. So asking for even a podcast to be played, or the next episode or whatever that happens to be is much more easily done. And you can do a lot more. You can consume a lot more via audio, including audiobooks and things like that. So I think the future is audio. And a lot of platforms, which we were just talking about offline just now, like Clubhouse, is audio based as well. So I still see a lot more happening with the audio to simplify our lives and do things more efficiently.
Now let me take the same question to Vanessa as well to sort of add her opinion on that. What do you think, Vanessa? How do you see this shift as going, and what do you think is an opportunity for businesses? How does the future looks like?
Thank you, Rashmi. I actually was going to add in if you didn't call my name, so thank you for adding in. I think as a woman, as a multitasking woman who is a wife, a mother, a businesswoman, I'd really like to touch on the point that Henrik mentioned there with regards to the simplicity of audio, right? I'll give you a real life example. Last night, I'm doing my ironing, the kids have gone to bed. If I was to sit down and have to read a book, I would not be able to iron. The fact that with podcasts, we can simply just put some speakers in, some headphones, in our ears and listen to the podcast. I was ironing for about an hour, happily entertained listening to the podcast. With podcasts, they are educational, they are creative, they can get very personal. So I see it as a great value add for businesses, and a great way to capture new audiences as well, who typically would not be able to consume a certain type of research maybe or learning because their lives are too busy to do so. So I definitely do feel that if businesses are not already into podcasting, I would assume that it is definitely an area that they can use to capture different people in the market whom they haven't already thought of.
Wonderful. Yeah, would you like to add to that? How do you see the shift happening?
Right. I think pretty much Henrik and Vanessa kind of covered most of the points. But the way if I have to give an example from my personal life of how we have used podcasts, is that podcast has become a way wherein we look at it more as a university for ourselves. In the sense, like when we look at some of the guests that we have invited on our podcast, we've had the founder of Marketo, we've had like some of the best in the world. And when I think of it, like I cannot have 1 hour of time with these people to sit down and teach us or share what they have done. On the contrary, when they come to our podcast, we can ask the questions that we have, and the knowledge is shared. It's immersive, as one of the people said here in the chat as well. So yeah, it's very unique, and as both these guys pointed out, it's also a secondary passive activity in sense, like my commute time when I go to the office, like of course I'm talking pre-COVID, when we used to go there, we used to listen to podcasts and pick a subject of our choice and specifically follow people, and that has in turn also traversed into your social media, LinkedIn and other places, now recently Clubhouse, where we can actually get in and connect with people. The best point, like again talking about audio with respect to a social platform like Clubhouse, is that you can go in, it's on the flow, it's not rehearsed, it's a little crude, it's a little authentic. You don't come in prepared, you speak about certain topics, and if you like something, you immediately also go back and connect with that person on LinkedIn. So I really think audio has made things a lot more easier, a lot more accessible. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Yag. So, Tizer, let me take the next question to you. As all the panelists, said that how the shift is going to look like and what opportunities does it bring for the businesses out there. The next question is for you. How do one break into the world of podcast? I mean, it is still very new as compared to the video thing that has already been happening as a marketing channel. Can you share some basic knowledge about tools, platform, and mediums, common cost which is associated with this while people launch their podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. The great thing about podcasting is kind of like YouTubing, is like there's no bar to entry, right? If you have an idea, you have a niche, you have an expertise, it's very simple. There's all kinds of really great platforms, whether it's Podbean or Anchor, Salescast. I use Zencast. I mean, there's all kinds of different platforms that you can even start your podcast for free. You've got a phone, you've got an idea, you record and you upload. I mean, it's really just as simple as that. One of the great things about podcasting right now is you kind of hear this rhetoric a bit that it's already saturated. Why would I start a podcast when there's so many out there? Well, if you look at podcasts in respect to YouTube, I think right now we're trending a little over 1 million podcasts, and that's just here in the United States, I believe. Or if you look at how many YouTube channels there are, there's 31 million. So it's still a long ways to go before it's quote unquote saturated. So those are some of the platforms. There's all kinds of cool tools. I use one called Podlink. So once it's uploaded, I can just send a link to the guest or to my audience, and then it gives them the chance to listen to any platform, whether it's Spotify, iTunes, Overcast, whatever it is. It gives them a chance to look. There's all kinds of great free resources. There's ones that I just got hit up where it's like $7 a month. It takes out all the ums out of your podcast. So it smooths a lot faster, as you're thinking and whatnot. It makes you sound a little bit cleaner, a little more pleasant to the ear. So I'm sure the other panelists have got a lot more to touch on.
Thank you, Tizer. So just a quick announcement for the audience here. If you have any question, make sure you put your questions in the questions tab. We'll make sure to answer all the questions in the last 15 minutes of the session. So make sure you put your questions there. So Henrik, let me take this. Let me have a follow-up question on that. As Tizer was answering about how to start in the podcast world, what technology is involved. How did you get started when you started your first podcast? I'm sure the audience, your experience is going to help the audience in giving that context. So please share your experience about how did you started your first podcast and what prep you did, what did you do in the technical front, how much cost was involved in it?
Sure, thank you. So I started a little over 10 years ago with my first podcast. I have about seven, 8 podcasts now, different shows. But the first one, it started as a blog, honestly. And I thought, well, let me take the very first or the highest read most read blog posts and make them monologues and read them out loud to my blog, to my podcast channel, my new podcast channel. Because I thought, well, different ears, different audience, potentially, there's going to be a bigger audience or a different audience to consume that. What I quickly learned is because I did that, I did have a new audience and a growing audience, and the monologues weren't that interesting, honestly, until I figured out that other people have something to say about a topic, any topic you want. And it's just a matter of finding them and interviewing them. So as soon as I interviewed them, my podcast audience grew significantly. And it's not overnight. It took like several months or a couple of years, realistically speaking, depending on which channel we're talking about or which show. But realistically speaking, it's a matter of interviewing people and having a conversation and a dialogue about a topic of interest, that's relatively focused. And I found that was the easiest way to grow. And then what I did is I packaged it up and I recycled the same methodology that I created one channel with by asking boilerplate questions, and repeated and changed it for a different topic. So I was able to do that repeatedly, record a series of interviews, and then what I figured out is, well, why don't I interview people, transcribe them, and create a book of all the valuable tips that people give me. And so what I did is eventually I created a model where I interview people first. I don't release any of the podcasts. I transcribe it, put it into a book with lots of editing, of course, and then market the book with every single episode to be released over a year. And that works. It works very well. I've done it a number of times. That's what I do.
Thank you, Henrik. You touched upon the format of the podcast and how to repurpose the content. So we will touch upon it and we will deep down on it in the coming time. So next question is for Vanessa. Vanessa, please let us know how to identify if a business should go for podcasting as a marketing tool. Will it be true to say that anyone can use it for their business growth? Like one of the registrant question was, would it be worth it, and how to start a podcast for high-end furniture retail? So what do you think? How is it for everyone, or is it just for specific industries? And how should a business identify it as a marketing tool?
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate the question. And I think from my perspective, it is about doing your market research first. If we think about the day and age that we are in, we are a lot more digital today than we were, let's say, 10 years ago, but Henrik started 10 years ago podcasting. However, the world is only going to continue becoming more and more digital as time goes by. In my opinion, podcasting is definitely viable for every single kind of business. However, it does depend on the niche that you are in, or niche, if we say it in the way that the Americans would say. It's about understanding your market. Who is it that you're targeting? Who are your current customers? What is the viability of being able to attract more customers like that? Or is it that you actually need to actually change your marketing strategy to actually try and attract new clients? So I think the great thing about podcasting is that there are no costs associated if you don't want there to be costs. So if it is also a matter of wanting to test it out, there is always going to be benefit in doing it nonetheless for the current customers that you have, as long as they have access to social media and mobiles, right? So that is when we have to think about, right, are we dealing with like really old people here who really don't engage with social media, and that is the kind of business that you're in, then it doesn't make sense. But if that isn't the case, then I 100% would say that it would make sense for your business to have a podcasting strategy as part of its marketing strategy. But I'd be keen to hear what everyone else thinks.
Thank you, Vanessa. Tyson, would you like to add to that? How do you think businesses should identify if podcast is for them, and how should they sort of enter into this market?
Yeah, I agree with Vanessa. I think that any business can utilize a podcast, and I think that there's a different couple prongs that you can use to utilize it. You can use it so it's internal. So if you're trying to, for me, I work for a Fortune 100 company here in the States. We've got over 30,000 employees. So you can use a podcast to get your message out to your team, right? It's going to be spread all over the world. So that's a very effective way. Obviously, I'm in sales, and it's always like age-old question, how do you get around the gatekeeper? It's always, we're providing value. We're trying to meet with influence and decision makers. Well, asking a decision maker or an influencer to come on your podcast is a great way to start to build rapport. So you're able to access people that normally wouldn't pick up your call or return your email, but making it about them and having them on is a great way to start to build that connection, establish credibility, because you can do that through your conversation. So I think there's a couple different prongs that you can attack it. And then obviously just, like Henrik was saying, bringing people on that are an expert in their field. Again, establishes your credibility. You can put out your message and your guest's message and cross collaborate to hit different audiences that may be interested in working with you.
All right, thank you. So, Yag, let me take this next question to you. And I think it is one of the questions that a lot of people would be sort of struggling with or have a question in mind, which is about content creation. One has to be very regular and very particular about, content creation. It's not like today we have started the podcast and we are releasing the next episode a month after a month or so, right? So what do you think? Can you sort of give us some tips or strategy to create consistent content for your podcast? And a lot of questions or queries were around how to zero down on topics, ideal length of the podcast, what should be the frequency. So can you touch upon that?
Sure. So, when it comes to looking at content, the way I perceive it is that, you need to actually niche down on a very specific area. It's not like, say, for example, my podcast is about B2B marketing. But, as you can see, B2B marketing in itself is a broad area. You have to look at whom are you looking for. So the first thing, we decided to go about, like our podcast is about 1 year old right now, but quickly we have grown to be among the top 1% podcasts because we niche down to some specific areas. Like say we said ABM is one of our focus. That's why we named our podcast as the ABM Conversations podcast. And then we spoke about very specific things like, say, revenue marketing. We spoke about, and one of the interesting things that happened is, I'm happy that Vanessa and Tizer also mentioned, they said that, podcasts can be done by anyone. In fact, one of our most recent guests, when I asked him the same question, he went on to even say that if you are not having a podcast as a B2B business, you're insane. So he went down and made it so clear. So getting back to the question of creating content and the size of it, I really don't think there is any specific format. Some of the podcasts are 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Some of them are even 2 hours. And both these do well. If you have actually niched down and gone very specific and people are loving your content, then they are probably even ready to spend 2 hours. It's about like how good your content is. The reason why majority of the podcasts actually fail is that the content is way too generic. It's something what everybody does is like, they go and take the easy route of just getting a guest talking about something, and you record that, then you repurpose into a blog, you're pretty much done. So it becomes more of a content creation machine. It's not about that. You are going to solve a very specific problem. Why should people come back and listen to you? What is the reason? Like, what is that you're offering something that somebody else doesn't? So you have to find that area, and that's way more important. And in our podcast, one of the things that we did was for the first 13 or 14 episodes, we did not even have a guest. We figured out that there are certain topics that we are going to talk about, and then if there are very specified areas, like say for example, if I'm going to talk about gamification, then I'm not an expert in gamification. I might probably get somebody like Yukai Chao, who's the world's #1 there. He has a framework called Octalysis. So we got him on board. So if I'm going to talk about MarTech, I'm going to get somebody like Scott Brinker. So it depends what kind of guests, what kind of topics, how much focus you get into. So identifying the topic is, how do you go about doing that? I would say, look at something that is very natural to you. And at the same time, that's not so easy for somebody else. For somebody else, it feels like work. Then you've got your sweet spot and deep dive into that. And as you get doing, if you're really excited about it, you will discover more and more topics into that specific zone.
All right. Thank you so much.
I'd just like to weigh in as well, if I can.
Yeah.
As well. Just one thing as well, I found it really interesting to hear what Yag mentioned. Something that we do as Womenflix is, say, for example, every time we do have a guest, I found it really interesting, Yag, that you guys did 14, 15 episodes of having no guests. What a great idea. Why not? One thing that we do is prior to having the actual recording session with the actual guests themselves, we will ask them for their bios ahead of time. And then, we'll look at their story, try to understand a bit more about who they are before we actually get them on the session and ask them questions. But from that, we will then create a really captivating marketing title, it could be, for example, we had one recently that we recorded that was like the firewoman. It could be how to generate a 6-figure income. I think trying to understand your guest speaker before you get them into your session is also really key to them being able to create captivating content, as opposed to leaving it until the session itself.
Thank you, Vanessa. Henrik, let me take this content creation question to you as well. Your podcast is almost 10 years, old, and you have been creating regular content. Probably, as you mentioned, that you have 6-7 different podcasts. So I'm sure you would have seen the kind of content which works, which doesn't work, the kind of mistakes that people make when it comes to create content creation. So please, share some light on the mistakes that people are making when it comes to content creation from your own experience, and what tips and advices that you have to give to people about it.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. For the most part, the main challenge is audio quality, number one. So you need a mic, hence why a lot of us are showing our mics or have a mic that we're not showing right now. There you go. Thank you, Tyser. And that helps a lot, as you can tell from the audio quality that we have today. Also learning how to speak properly, and that comes from practice. Confidence comes with it as well by practicing what you're going to speak. Separately from that, and I think the other guests have touched on this, marketing properly your show and having a topic that has enough things to talk about. Even if it's a brand new topic. I answered a question earlier on a different forum about categorization. It's like, oh, what categories need more podcasts? It's like, well, the point is you can create your own category. That's fine. The point is, talk about something that hasn't been talked about, right? And make sure people are actually interested in it, but haven't touched on it yet. It doesn't matter what the topic happens to be. So don't just recreate what's already been out there 15,000 times, right? There are over 1 million podcasts, but there's plenty of room to grow, back to Tyser's point. Far more than YouTube, for example, or other video channels. And what has not worked very well is poor audio quality. Not having a specific niche, back to what the Yaga was talking about, and not marketing properly. Because you have a show doesn't mean anyone will find it. You have to market it properly, and that means being on many podcast channels, meaning not just Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or Spotify, but all of them, if possible, or as many as you can find across the world. Right? There are some that are specific to certain countries or areas that usually aren't seen in the United States, which is okay. If you want that audience and you want a larger audience, which is part of the goal of a podcast, right? To spread your message, whatever that happens to be. So that would be my tips, pros and cons.
All right, thank you so much, Henrik. Tyser, let me take this question to you, and a lot of people who registered for this session also asked this question, which is about demographic of the audience. As we know that Instagram is all about, a young audience stays on Instagram. So is there any, is there a specific user persona and demography of a podcast consumer, and is it any different than a normal content consumer, majorly who are consuming written content or a video content?
Yeah, I think it's important to always pay attention to your analytics on all your social media platforms. You're going to get a different audience on Facebook than you would Instagram, than you might even in your podcast. So it's important to tailor your message to each audience in each platform and understand who's who. Like for my audience on podcast, it's 80% male that are 18 to 35. And that's because I'm talking to young sales professionals, young sales leaders, and people that are in the startup entrepreneur space. So then I kind of dictate my guests to that particular audience. And then when I go to make like clips and whatnot for Instagram or even I'm on TikTok as a 36-year-old, I don't dance or sing though. But I try to even cater that type of content to that demographic and whatnot. And one of the things that kind of going back to the last question that I did to start with was the name of my podcast is Grind, Sell, Elevate. And the reason that was so intentional was I used the bucket approach. So grind is a bucket, sell is a bucket, and elevate as a bucket. And so I base content around those three pillars of how to motivate, how to sell, and how to optimize your life. So then it's very easy for me to create content because the content goes into those three buckets. So it's easy for me to schedule it out, and I can do the same type of stuff with my guest.
All right, thank you so much, Tizer. So, everybody, I hope you guys are enjoying the session. I see a lot of questions in the question section. We will take all of them in the last 15 minutes. But before I continue with this, I would like to give a quick shout out to Design Hill for organizing this session. Stay tuned, and we will be right back to hear more from our panelists.
Clarematics is a full-service video agency based around video production. We created a brand that fit our identity at the time, but as we've evolved as a company, we found that original brand didn't quite fit our aspirations anymore. Finding a partner to rebrand your entire company takes a lot of time and effort. Finding Design Hill was an incredible lifeline. Design Hill offers a money-back guarantee. If we don't like any of the designs, we get all of our money back. The stuff that we ended up with were well beyond what we had been seeing on other creative services platforms. After creating a simple design brief by answering some questions created by Design Hill, we posted, and within a few days, we had over 250 entries. Design Hill's platform made it easy to communicate with all of the potential designers. Eventually, we picked a winner. In addition to a logo, our designer also created a letterhead, business cards, and banners for all of our social media platforms. With Design Hill's help, we now have a brand that meets our aspirations. We're ready for the future and everything that it's here to bring.
All right, we're back. So let me take this next question to Henrik, and I'll take the next one to Vanessa, post that. So Henrik, a recent study has shown that podcast ads are 4 times more effective than display ads and are likely to generate greater purchase intent amongst the audience. What should be kept in mind when placing the ads through the podcast? And also, in your experience, do you think this study is sort of true to an extent?
I guess it depends on the audience and the demographic. Back to what the other guests were saying. There are demographics specifically to podcasts where they're typically earning more money, so they have more disposable income typically. That's not always the case necessarily speaking, depending on the topic as well. But it could be the true. I've not heard that statistic before that you mentioned, but it depends on where your audience is listening or watching. So it could be very much true. I think back to the question earlier around, are people listening more? Yes, people's ears are more available than their eyes are, because we're very distracted by today's standard, right? By many, many different things, regardless of what country we happen to be in. So if you can ping someone's ear with something of interest or of value, you're more likely to get their attention and potentially that sale.
All right.
Can I add something to this?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
So, this is a very interesting question because, ads is something that you have to be very cautious and you have to be thoughtful about, because you need to know what is the purpose of your podcast, right? So if podcast is, you're doing it for running ads and making money out of it, there are several ways to do that. But, your podcast might not be the main source for revenue. So think about it. And secondly, it also purely depends on what kind of audience, what kind of format. And the reason I'm cautioning is, anything that you do via podcast is going to be purely intuitive, in the sense like it's not very easy to measure what you get out of a podcast. Like, say, for example, somebody might connect with me on LinkedIn and might say, you know what, Yag, what you said the other day on that podcast made me a lot of sense. And that is why I'm connecting with you right now. And from there, we might go on to, sign up a deal, or, a business transaction might happen. But it's very difficult to, map right in advance saying that this is how the funnel is going to be, this is how we are going to go. So it's extremely important. And also what happens is a lot of advertisement in podcasts these days are actually announced or read by the podcast hosts themselves. Like we had Zest as one of our sponsors, and we said what they do, but it's very difficult even for Zest to go back and say that how many people came through this. Might be there might be a user code that we might give to them, and then they use that. That makes sense, but there is nothing click-worthy there, because as we mentioned very early, podcast is always a secondary activity. People are hearing it on the go. They're not going to sit down and notice, or it's not clickable. So it's extremely important where you use it, how you use it, and who your audience is, and if that makes sense.
Yes, perfectly. I think that makes sense a lot. Also, yeah, you touched upon the ROI. I had one of the question on the question in my list, which was about how to measure the effectiveness and ROI with the podcast. You touched upon a bit that it is very difficult. However, let's deep dive and understand. From the perspective of the audience, that somebody who's investing a lot of time and efforts into doing podcasts, content creation, there should be something like a way to sort of measure the whole ROI from it. So can you touch up? So let me take this question to Vanessa now. Vanessa, can you touch upon how to measure the effectiveness and the ROI coming from podcasts?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can even sort of go back to what Tyser mentioned as well, with regards to the fact that 80% of his audience, are males, and I think the way in which Womenflix do measure it is understanding, for example, how many people are subscribing to our podcasts, trying to review how many times the podcasts were downloaded, how many times they were shared on your social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook and so on. But more importantly, I think if you're using podcasts to actually generate revenue for your business, it's actually measuring how many of those actual podcast reviews converted into actual business clients, right? And then if you want to go even further, you can look to try to evaluate, okay, how much revenue did that one individual person generate from that one podcast view, right? So there are ways to really go into it in more detail, but those are 4 of the different examples that we use. But again, it depends on how you're actually wanting to generate revenue, if you're wanting the podcast to generate revenue or not, or if you're actually just trying to increase your audience, and if you're trying to use it as well for brand awareness, for example. So just a few different examples there.
Okay, I think it is a very important question, and I would like to take this to Tizer and Henrik as well. Tizer, I'll start with you. Like, how do you make sense of the whole podcast analytics? You have been doing your own podcast. What do you measure, and how sort of you understand the ROI and the effectiveness from your podcast? Can you throw some light on that?
Yeah, so what I look at is obviously it's downloads, right? It's not watch time like YouTube. So you're wanting to see a steady uptick in your downloads. One of the other things I pay attention to as well is looking at how long the average podcast listen time is to. Because, if I'm creating content and say, content A, the podcast was 40 minutes, but the average listen time was 12. Well, that's obviously not doing a great job of resonating with my audience. Versus where if I had a particular guest or a particular topic where the average watch time was all the way through the podcast, and I want to continue to hone down on that type of content.
All right, Henrik, the same question to you. How do you sort of get to figure out the ROI from your podcast?
Yeah, I think it depends on how you're measuring ROI. So to Tizer's points, it definitely could be statistics as far as download time and to Vanessa's point, how many listeners convert to sales, right? Depending on what you're selling and how interested, because you don't control who listens to your podcast. There's zero control. It is a global audience by default, whether you're a local company or you're a national company or you're global. So you have to remove the filter of saying, well, I'm only making this for this village that I live in. No, that's not true. So instantaneously, you have a potential global audience, and that's okay. The ROI that I look at is how many convert to either buying one of my books or using my consulting services for a variety of consulting that I do. And realistically speaking, I don't have to advertise because I do podcast content like that or blog posts. So I don't do advertising whatsoever for my podcast or that. And people listen to my podcast content, and I generalize on purpose. If they want specifics, they contact me for consulting, for specific help for their organization or their needs, right? And that's how I measure my ROI. It helps to have to look at what has, back to Tizer's points, which topics or which people or what you hit on it resonated more for more readers. Readers will fluctuate over the year, and what happens, during holidays, it may taper off. When there's something major happening in the world, people's attention span may vaporize sometimes on occasion. But what also matters is what topics resonate for the audience members, meaning you should probably create more of those. And also, I would caution people when you start a podcast, don't focus solely on analytics. Let that grow for a while. Let that grow for several months, because you're not going to have 1 million subscribers day one. That's not going to happen no matter how famous you are. So remove that filter of like, oh, I'm going to make $1 billion, and no, not going to happen. So remove that filter. Don't do it just for the money. Don't do it just for the listeners instantaneously. Let it simmer and grow.
All right, that makes sense, Hendrik. Thank you so much for that. Yang, let me take this question to you. Can you throw some light on the promotion and distribution of podcast content? I mean, people have done a lot of efforts into creating the content, inviting a guest, being a host of the show, and everything. Now, how should they go about promotion and distribution of the same content, which can help them in getting this whole ROI thing that we just talked about?
Right. So it in fact, extends to the ROI question exactly as you mentioned. To add to what was discussed previously, is you need to know what part of the flywheel is your podcast contributing to, right? So in the sense, some of them are doing it primarily for the sake of getting business, like Tyson mentioned earlier. Like, say, if you are into account-based marketing, and if you're trying to get someone into your company, like if you're trying to win an account, you're trying to get someone on the show and build relationships. That's one way of looking at it. The second, the reason why we started the ABM Conversations podcast is we wanted to create the best repository of B2B marketing content out there. So, we are not tied to any company. We are purely doing it because we are passionate about it. We enjoy the topic, and it's fun for us. So, purely if you look at this also works. Now, putting this into a company's context, that can be pure play branding, right? So the way I would like to tie it is that certain companies, when you start your growth marketing, what you do is, like, you invest about 40-50% on performance marketing. That is your say Google AdWords or whatever CPC that you're investing into, and then there is the other set where you invest into branding. So the companies that invest 60% or more into branding will win 4 years down the line, in a much better way than where you invest more into the CPCs. So that logic, pretty much ties back to the podcast as well. If you're playing the long-term game with long-term people, then you're going to win. Now, when it comes to the promotional aspect, right? So it also ties back to the kind of audience understanding that you have. So when I look at my podcast now, I clearly know that my listeners are B2B marketing and sales folks between, say, 8 to 10 years of experience, and majorly from US, UK, Australia, and India. So I'm like hyper-focused. I know who my audience is. And I've seen majority of these guys interact with me on LinkedIn. So when when you go to my podcast page on my website, I clearly say that we are not about getting 1 million downloads, but we are specifically about building one-to-one relationships with people. Now, when I know these people, I know these guys hang out on LinkedIn. I know that these guys come back and read my blogs. Now, when I know where these guys hang out, then all my promotion is channeled towards there. So anything that you promote, it's important to go back and analyze. The best thing that I loved about what Hendrik said, what Tyson said, is also you are not going to get analytics from day one. So in the beginning, you start something, you go down the line, like go into it for about 2 months or 3 months, and then look back at your data. Then you'll cull out a pattern out of it, and then see, okay, what's working, which from, say, if my majority of my listeners are coming out from Spotify, and from there they are going into a specific blog post, then you see the path and start promoting exactly there. I think it's all about understanding your audience and then taking your next step.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah. Thank you so much for that. Tyson, just for the audience understanding, I would like to take the same question to you about distribution and promotion of the content. How do you go about that?
So I just try to be omnipresent, to be honest. I always joke that I'm a bit of a masochist, where I deal with my own marketing, and I'm everywhere, and it's painful. So I try to chop it up. I said into little bits. But it's also really important for me. So LinkedIn's a great source. I have a great following on Instagram, even Pinterest, because you can add links. So I throw up a thumbnail with a link on Pinterest, gets actually quite a bit of views, chopping up the content, putting it onto TikTok if you want. But one of the things that I do, and I don't know about the other panelists, but maybe they can talk on it, is when I give all the content to the person I'm interviewing as well. And I have a full email with the link, thumbnail, YouTube link, everything's already done for them. I give them specific hashtags to use. So then that's obviously cross promotion as well. I'm tagging them on all of my channels, then they tag me on all their channels, and then we're all hitting different audiences.
All right, thank you, Tizer. So I see a lot of questions in the question section, and since we are just left with 10 more minutes, I suppose we should take questions here. So let me see. Let me take the questions with the highest upvotes first, which means a lot of people want to know the answer of that question. So okay, let me start. So Saib when Den is asking if you guys can see your question screen, it's on the top. Can you elaborate a bit on the area the podcast should focus on? How do you find this area and decide it is unique enough to find listeners? So let me take this to Vanessa.
So I think this comes back to something that Henrik actually spoke about already as well. And in my opinion, I think it has to be something that relates to you first of all. If we go back to talking about the niche as well, something that Tizer touched upon, it has to be something that's of interest to you. I think in the beginning, you have to just let it roll, but you have to have a natural curiosity to want to understand more, to have a natural curiosity to want to know more about that person, to understand what they're doing and the area of business that they're in. So when we talk about the area that the podcast should focus on, think about what it is that's interesting to you. If you already have a business, what is it that's actually going to be of interest to your clients? Because you want to think about the best way to ensure that you're using this podcast to tackle various different parts of your business. And that means thinking about it as well as an opportunity for business growth and revenue too. So I don't think there's a right way or wrong way about it. It's about understanding your niche, understanding what your listeners want to listen to, but more importantly, also understanding what is actually going to be of interest to you. Because if you don't have a natural interest in the individual you're going to be talking to, there isn't going to be interaction, the conversation isn't going to flow, and you're not going to have that natural curiosity, as I mentioned again, to want to ask questions, and the questions and the interaction are what really makes the conversation and the podcast successful.
Thank you, Vanessa. Henrik, let me take the next one to you. It's asked by Henna, and the question, it's the second question on the screen. It says, should your podcast be an introduction of yourself and the podcast theme, or should you do a brief introduction and then dive right into the content?
I would focus on the value of what you're going to provide to the audience. You can do a short introduction to yourself if that's contextually necessary for people to or find out more about you. Like I've had X number of years and experience on this topic. Therefore, I'm a thought leader or subject matter expert in XYZ topic. That's helpful to give the context to the listeners, but you have to focus on the listeners, not yourself. Right? Because ultimately people listen for value. They don't listen because one person like myself or anyone else is talking. So I'm a channel for that information, right? It's not about me. Ultimately, it's not really about my business either until it serves their purpose and serves value to them and they need it. And ultimately that should be down the funnel, right? The whole purpose of it is they get value, they listen, and as they listen more, they're like, oh, maybe he can help me or she can help me with this problem. Therefore, I should contact them. And you can have that information about yourself, how to contact you, how to find out more about what you do with website X or social channel X, YZ, whatever that happens to be in there as well, and mention it in the beginning, middle, and end if necessary, as promos or as ads or however you want. But you don't need to do it in the beginning. Tell people up front what they're going to hear about in the beginning, so that in the first 30 seconds they know exactly if they're going to continue listening or not, because people value their time a lot, whether they realize it or not. And what I keep telling people is expectations continue rising as patients decrease, and they don't decrease at the same rate and increase at the rate either. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so let me see the next question here. Okay, so Yag, let me take this question to you. Jordan is asking, is there an ideal, I think we have answered that, but still for better clarity, let's answer this question. The question is, okay, I think I lost that. Just give me a sec.
No, I
Okay,
can see
yeah.
it.
Yeah. It says, is there an ideal podcast length based on the audience attention span?
As I said before, I really don't think so. You can have any length. So, certain people prefer to have it about like 20 to 25 minutes. Our podcast is about like 1 hour, 50 minutes to 1 hour. It keeps fluctuating. But, as long as you're contentful, as long as you keep the interest of the listeners, the length can keep on. Like, say, for example, one of my favorite podcasts is something called the knowledge panel or something like that. It's done by, I'm not getting the exact name, but it's done by somebody called Shane Parrish. So it's all about mental models. I absolutely love that. It's called the Knowledge Project, and each of the episode is about like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. But I still listen to that. And so it depends on if you can keep the interest. That's the core of everything.
All right, thank you so much. So the next question is asked by Tizer. Let me take this question to you. It's a bit technical one, and it says, "What is the best way to attach or integrate a podcast to a website?"
Have a great website, guy. So yeah, I mean, my platform, they have an embedded section. So I went to my website guy and I just said, hey, I want to create a podcast tab. So anybody going to my website can go and listen to all of my episodes. So we did that. We took all of the embedded files. So now on my website, it just says podcast, and then all of my content is right there. So I'm not a super technical guy. I'm a sales guy. So I pay somebody else to do that for me. That's a good question.
All right. So, Hendrik, let me take this question to you. The next one is asked by Monique, and I think you are also already answering it, but for everyone's clarity, 42 people are here. So, the question is, what tips do you have for asking for guests on your podcast? And just to elaborate on that, so sort of how to invite them to your podcast and how to approach them. Any tips on that?
Yeah, sure. So the methodology I use is I look on social media for thought leaders on that topic. And what I do is I invite them with a link and say, connect with me if you're interested, meaning it's an opt-in, right? They opt in if they're interested. I'd like to interview you for my podcast about topic X. If you're interested, connect with me and I'll send you the questions in advance. For you to ponder in advance, basically, and think about it. And once they do, I get their email address and I email them basically a boilerplate information of what the podcast is about, what they're going to get out of it, or what the audience is going to get out of it, both actually, the questions, where it's going to be available, how they can listen to it themselves, and a Calendly link. I highly recommend Calendly or something very similar, where it's basically they click on that link for a set period of time. My podcast, full disclosure, are usually between 5 and 15 minutes long on purpose, because I want to give maximum value in a minimum amount of time. So what I do is I schedule a 15-minute call with them. So they all have the information ahead of time. I say, hello, I've never met them in my lifetime. That's okay. They're either comfortable with it or they opt out, and they know what they're talking about, or they opt out. And we scheduled the call. It happens. It's recorded. It gets edited. They get to approve what they said, and then it gets scheduled for release. Does that help?
Yes, I'm sure it will. So thank you so much, Hendrik, for that answer. All right, so we have 5 more minutes. Let's answer 2-3 more questions. All right. So Jordan has a question which is about how frequently should one podcast for effectiveness without overdoing it for your audience? Tizer, would you like to answer that?
Sure. Yeah, that should be a simple answer. I don't think that there's a right one. I know guys that do it 7 days a week, some that do it 10 times a week. I do it twice a week. So, it just really depends on what's your strategy. Why are you doing it? What are you trying to get out of it? It will help answer a lot of those questions on frequency. How much time you have as well. If you're doing your own editing, I do all of my own. So I got to do that on the weekends, and working full time and being married and having kids makes it a bit more challenging to do it 7 days a week for me. But I don't think there's a wrong or right answer with that.
All right, Jordan, I hope you got the answer of your question. One last question from the question section here, which is again, which we have already touched upon, but let's explain it once again for the clarity of the audience. Paula has a question which is on the top, which says, what podcast platform would you specifically suggest for people who are just starting a podcast and have a target audience of students and young people age 15 to 30? Henrik, would you like to touch upon that?
I think I think Tizer touched on that earlier. So Anchor or Podbean would be a simple way to do that. Realistically speaking, if you're talking about the podcaster, where that would be, I mean, it's a matter of where you display it. I would suggest having it on all of the podcast channels, like we talked about earlier. So not just on Apple, not just on Spotify, not just on Google Podcasts, but everywhere. And there's aggregators for this. So we haven't mentioned Libsyn or Audio Boom as two possible aggregators, which means you record your podcast, you post it there one time, and then it sends it to all the different places that your podcast needs to be displayed for all the listeners, regardless of what channel or they go to. Channels meaning Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, et cetera, et cetera. So they can go to any of those and get to listen to what you want. I hope that answers the question.
All right, all right. So let's take the last question of the session, and we'll wrap up after that. And since we are talking about podcast today over here, so the question is, what are some of the advantages of podcast that no other marketing tool offers? This question is open for all the panelists. And also, please, since it's the last question of the session, let's also talk about any tips, any suggestion that you would like to share with the audience today to start their own podcast, or if they have already started, how to sort of grow in this industry as a whole. So I will start with Yag, and then I'll take it to the other panelists as well. Please start with what advantages does the podcast offer that other marketing platforms or tools doesn't offer, and any tips that you have to share with the audience.
Right. So fundamentally, I would say that, I believe that the purpose of marketing as such is purely just two things: building trust, building relationships. And, podcast is a great way to do both of it. So that's the primary purpose that I use it for. And I think, other panelists can add further as well. So that covers the purpose. And what was the second question again?
Any tips that you would like to share with the audience to sort of help them either start their podcast journey, or if they have already started grow in this industry?
Right. So the only thing about doing a podcast well is staying consistent with it. You have to learn continuously from what's happening. Like when I go back and look at my first 2 or 3 episodes, I really cringe. It sounds very odd. And I have a very unique kind of a voice. I don't have a deep voice, so it sounds really odd. But over a period of time, you get very casual about it. You speak on the flow. So it's extremely important to be open-minded when you get on it. Don't be too conscious, but at the same time, be sure that you're adding value and stick to it. It's like always play long-term game with long-term people. You will get a long-term effect. So if you're going to look for quick wins, podcast is not for you. But if you're going to be investing at least 1 year at a time, then you should be getting into it.
All right, Vanessa, your take on that?
So I think if I were just to touch upon what Yag said, I think be yourself is the most important thing. Don't try to be someone that you're not, and get comfortable, listening to yourself as well. I think the fact that Yag mentioned that he cringed when he heard the first couple of episodes, I think that's quite normal. Whether you're hosting your own podcast and you're on someone else's podcast, I think the first instinct is like, oh my God, is that what I sound like? Get used to it. That's who you are. Get comfortable with it, because at the end of the day, you're looking to captivate the trust of your audience, like Yag said as well, right? The trust of that person who's on your podcast, but you're looking to build a relationship, not just with who is on that podcast, but the individuals as well who are going to be listening to that. But ultimately, the advantages of it are it allows you to make information personal, right? As opposed to just picking up a book and searching on the internet. You can really ask personal questions. You can ask second and third level questions that allow you to get into the, nitty bitty details that you probably wouldn't get a chance to go into. It's convenient because you can do it alongside other tasks throughout your day. It's easy to consume. You don't have to have any costs associated to it in the beginning or ever if you don't want to. But most importantly, it's a really time efficient form of communication, right? Because people can listen to it when they want. If they need to stop, they can pause it. But at the same time, you're always trying to communicate a message to your audience. And then the two last points that I touch upon is the fact that it's on-demand technology and it's portable. People can take it with them wherever they want. So it really is one of the best ways of getting knowledge and information across to people.
Thank you, Vanessa. Tizer?
Yeah, I'm just going to echo what Jörg and Vanessa said. I think it's, as far as a marketing perspective, it's great because we're so been conditioned with commercials, and that's what people have grown up on, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and that's why they try to appeal to emotion more than anything to try to hook people. Where here you really establish your credibility. It could be in 5 or 10 minutes, or you can spend an hour. But it allows you to kind of get in there and to be a true thought leader and not have to do it in 60 seconds. Even, if you look at most of our social media platforms, your stories are limited to 60 seconds on Instagram, TikTok 60 seconds. There's even a maximum amount of time on LinkedIn for videos that you can post. And so to really be a true thought leader and go long with your ideas and establish that credibility, I think it's the best platform to do that.
Thank you, Tizer. Henrik, any last tip, advice, suggestion from your experience of 10 years of hosting podcasts that you would like to share with the audience?
Sure. Yeah. So I would recommend starting small, recording a few episodes before you launch itself, 2 or 3, realistically speaking, but make sure you have a buffer so that you can continually create in the same cadence, meaning, pick a day, pick a time, then you're going to release that in a scheduled basis. So whether it's every day, every week, once a month, whatever, twice a month, whatever that looks like, and continue that cadence so people can expect to listen to that show on a regular basis and build that trust, to your point, and have that available to them. And tell them if you're going to take a break, right? Or tell them how long you've only created, 50 episodes and you're going to take a break for the rest of the year. I don't know why. Some people might do that. But another thing that I want to touch on is the accessibility, literally the accessibility of podcasts, not just the fact that it's so easy to consume and to create, but also the fact that blind people listen to it for obvious reasons. And people who can't listen, I post a full transcript of it. And people who don't speak English literally have told me that they follow along with what myself and whoever I'm interviewing follow along to learn how to speak English based on my podcasts. So it's less about the topic and more about how to learn how to speak English. So that's very humbling, to be perfectly honest. But it helps SEO, shockingly, and it also helps to grow your audience. So those are 2 tips that I would suggest, that if you want to talk about something of business relations or anything that we've talked about tonight, do that and help your audience grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Henrik. Thank you, everybody, for answering that questions. These were some of the great advices and tips that you have shared with the community here and for the audience. And I'm sure these were super helpful and super insightful. All right, so that brings us to the end of this wonderful session with Henrik, Tizer, Vanessa, and Yagneshwaram. This was indeed a value-packed session, although we could have covered a lot of questions and a lot of other topics as well, but we have limited time. Thank you so much once again, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you so much to all the panelists once again for taking out the time and joining us, and to the audience as well for listening to us and joining us here today. You have been a lovely audience. All the questions that you have asked, all the interaction that we have had here, we enjoyed it, we loved it. Thank you so much for that. So, but this is not where it ends. We have a lot more events lined up in the coming months. If you guys have not registered yet, I'm putting the link of our event section in the chat, so you can go ahead and register for the coming sessions. To stay updated with session like these, you can follow us on our social media platforms, and you can also sign up for our events newsletter so that you don't miss any of such session in future. Also, if you have joined us late here, or if you want to see the recording of the previous events that we have had, you can go to our events platform and check out the recording of all the sessions there. Also, all the business, all the designers and artists, or anyone in business who is listening to us and would like to know more about Design Hill, make sure you check out designhill.com. We have also launched some cool DIY designer challenges for the designers out there. So make sure you do that. On that note, I would like to say good night to everyone who have joined us here today. Thank you so much once again for joining us. It was lovely having all of you. Thank you so much once again to all the panelists for joining us. And I hope to see you guys once again in the next session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care, guys. Thank you.